Good evening, this is BelGeode and we are back with some more X-Plane 11 in virtual reality. Howdy folks, and we are back in Bahrain in X-Plane. Yes, this is a special FREEWARE Bahrain scenery that I'm using. And the reason why we're here tonight, aside from to check out the construction workers that are apparently trying to get out of that manhole there, we're going to be looking at a brand new aircraft. This is the Just Flight British Aerospace Hawk T-1A. And folks, let me tell you something, for an aircraft that is basically a port over from the ESP platforms, that being FSX and P3D to X-Plane, they did a phenomenal job on this thing. Alright, quick disclaimer. The checklist that I'm going to be using for the startup procedure tonight is not included with this aircraft. I actually stole it from DCS. Yes, that's right. Even though the DCS Hawk I do not own, the checklist is available for free online, so you can always download it. As I'm sure you're aware with this aircraft, it is a two-seater. It's pretty similar to the one that the Navy uses, the T-45 Goshawk, which is not currently modeled here in X-Plane. But let's go through the startup procedure. We're going to fly around and see what this thing has to offer. First thing we're going to want to do is turn on both batteries, and the switches are very tiny, so hitting it is going to be interesting here. Alright, so that's both. We're also going to need the ignition switch on. Okay, we're going to go down the list, make sure that we press our caution and warning lights here. Alright, fuel pump, fuel cock lever, parking brakes already set. We need oxygen and we need to close the canopy. Okay, so let's go in order here. Fuel cock lever, we're going to pull that all the way down. Fuel pump is right next to the two battery switches, so we'll turn that on. And what else did it say? Okay, oxygen and canopy. Got it. So the oxygen is going to be on the far side here, so we'll flip that switch so that it's pointing up. And we'll get ready to close our canopy. Real easy to do, just click the handle and it comes down. First thing I noticed, the sound is not quite synced up, so hopefully that's something the developers will fix. These mirrors also do have reflective properties, and you can turn it off to save FPS, by the way. Alright, moving on. Anti-collision light, we're going to want to turn you on. Now on this aircraft there's actually two. You'll notice that it has a little decal underneath it. There's one for the top and one for the bottom. So we're going to flip the top one and the bottom ones to the bottom selection, which is going to be the red lights for startup. One of them we're going to flip to white for strobe after. Alright, next order of business, we're going to want the engine switch on. It's not currently in the start position just yet, because we need to get our JFS, or jet fuel starter. Actually, I think it might be called the JPS in this thing. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, there's going to be a light that's coming up right now, or at least in a few seconds. There it is. It is green. Okay. So now we can start our engine. So we're going to flip the engine start switch to the uppermost position for a few seconds. It'll flip itself back down. And we're going to put our throttle to idle. And you should already hear everything spooling up. There's our light that indicates the engine is in start mode, and you can see the EGT is rising and everything. And the lights will extinguish themselves as the engine starts up. Now I do notice the sound does seem a little bit odd. It seems like the starting sound is a little bit louder than the actual engine running sound, but I don't know what's up with that. Alright, moving forward, we are going to want to get the hydraulic 2 on, and to do that we need to push this button right here. So you'll notice that the gauge just went up and it matches the other. Alright, moving on. Let's see, nav lights. We need nav lights. That's this switch here. We'll just flip that up. There we go. And INS nav needs to be on DG by default. This knob is always on DG, so you really don't need to do anything with that. You can see it says DG there. Radios. We need to turn the radios on, and VOR and TACAN. Okay, a quick note about the radio. This is something that's currently being improved, but the version that I have is the very first version where you have to like stretch your arm forward in order to turn a knob. Obviously, that's not right. They need to make the manipulator so that you can just rotate your wrist and it'll do it. From my understanding, there is an update that should have dropped by the time this video goes live, where it will fix all of those problems there. But for now, I've got to like stretch my arm out in order to turn on the radio. Alright, that's done. Mass lock and safe, I have no idea what the hell that means, so we're just going to pass that. INS system on DG, anti-skid on, pitot heat on, cockpit lights as required, flaps to middle, flight controls, okay. Pretty straightforward stuff. Now we're going to need our cockpit lights on, but before I get to that, I want to call attention to those caution lights and these three buttons on the left-hand side. We're going to go ahead and turn those on because those are actually our generators, and that unfortunately is not included in this checklist. But you kind of got to have them on. So you'll notice the lights all extinguish themselves, everything's looking good. Now we can continue on with our checklist. Where did I leave off? Anti-skid, I believe. Yes, there we go. We'll flip our anti-skid on, wait for the light to extinguish, and that is the last of the caution and warning lights, so we're good to go there. Okay, cockpit lights, flaps. Alright, cockpit lights, I was going to show you that earlier, but we'll do that right now. That's it right there. Now, really cool about this cockpit lights, they've got three knobs here, so you can turn up and down the left side, or if you use the middle knob, you can turn up and down the central controls. And as you would expect, the right knob will do the right console. So there we go. Pretty neat stuff. You can adjust everything to your taste. Alright, flaps, flight controls, landing and taxi lights. So let's get our flaps down. I have that on my Cytex, so I'm just going to flip it to the takeoff position. And we'll take a quick look outside. Yep. Looks like one flap down. How about the other side? Yep. Other flap down. Okay, we're good to go there. Landing lights, flight controls. Alright, what we're going to do is we're going to go outside and do our controls wipeout. Okay, control surfaces check out, so we're good to go there. Last thing on the list is going to be our landing and taxi lights, which are conveniently located right here. And then we just need to remove the parking brake and get going. Alright, so that means we're pretty much done with this portion of the checklist. And I'm probably not going to use the remainder of the checklist, but startup, I always try to at least do one startup on a new aircraft so that you can use this as a guide if need be. Alright, so Avatab, thank you for your service. We'll check our altimeter, make sure everything is kosher. 1013, yep, we're good there. HSI is currently centered. We won't be doing any kind of navigation work, so I don't need to do anything there. Alright, hang up the Oculus Touch controller, and we'll make sure we're clear on both right and left. Yep, looks like we are. Okay, time to taxi. Incidentally, the airport that we're using, in fact the island that we're using, is called the Kingdom of Bahrain 4.2.0, and the gentleman who made it is Renair 2. This is freeware, so as we fly around the Kingdom of Bahrain, one of the things you're going to notice is how the airport itself is modeled, the city surrounding the airport, as well as some of the outlying areas. There is actually a second airbase here. I think it's missing the third airbase, however. So I'm hoping that there's going to be an update coming for that soon. I did not use ortho photos for this particular one, but I think that it stands up well enough on its own just with the default explained terrain. However, hopefully in the future, the scenery designer might think about actually using ortho as a basis so that way he can get all the buildings properly in place. But we'll see all of that in a moment as soon as we make our way to the runway. For now, we're going to go to the outside view and take a look at the airport. As we take our time moseying down the taxiway here, one of the things that I neglected to mention, which I probably should, it's going to be important to you if you're not using VR, is the fact that this being a Just Flight bird, it also comes with the nifty Just Flight panel. Now, if you're not familiar with any Just Flight aviation equipment, shall we say, they all come with this little pop-up panel that have very useful features that are listed on there. So you can click on them to toggle the chocks on and off, for example, or torpedo and engine covers, or the little external ladder for the pilots to get in and out of. However, part of the reason why I have not really told you too much about that useful little panel is the fact that it's really not that useful in VR. I can't see it with the Oculus Rift on. Even if I click on a panel, I can still do the things that it, is giving me the options to do. I just can't see it in VR. So I don't know if that is, I guess, an area of opportunity for Just Flight to figure out how to make it an actual VR object that can be interacted with while inside the VR cockpit. So that way we don't lose our immersion. We don't have to take our visor off in order to actually hit the buttons and so on and so forth. But anyway, that's just like wish list items there, so pay me no mind. Alright, but we're here at the runway's end, so a couple of things we need to do before we get going here. Remember I told you about those two anti-collision switches? Well, the one on the right, for the upper one, I'm going to flip that to the strobe, so it's going to be the flashing white as soon as I can click it. There we go. And I believe everything else should be set. I don't think we'll need pitot heat, so I'm going to leave that off for the time being. Alright, any traffic coming in? Nope. Any traffic going out? Nope. Okay, well, I think now is as good a time as any to take the active, and then we will get out of here. Okay, so we're going to pull up right to the piano keys there, and then we'll do the brakes down, throttles up. One little bugbear that I have with this thing... Oh wow, those skyscrapers look really pretty. One little bugbear that I have with this thing is the way that the braking works. Sometimes it doesn't work. It's really hard to explain, but sometimes I can't get this thing to stop. So you know what? We're just going to throttle up, and we're going to head on out of here. So we're going to check out Bahrain by the air, and for our takeoff, we're going to go to the outside view as we always do. Whew, that was a pretty sprightly takeoff. Now you may notice that I'll be a little bit wobbly. This is of course a new aircraft, so I'm still trying to get used to all its quirks and nuances and so on and so forth. But man, look at that Bahrain. Wow. That's actually pretty good considering the fact that he put all of these 3D objects on just regular old default X-plane terrain. Now, full disclosure, I did actually download the ortho photos for this area, and it does kind of look better with the ortho photos in there, because as I'm sure you're aware with this neck of the woods, there's variations in the water, color, and so on and so forth, which really help to make things pop. But the reason why I said that before about him using orthos in his next update is basically to get all the buildings in the right spots. When you look at the ortho, you can see there's a lot more buildings here that apparently he missed out on. But suffice to say, this thing has excellent FPS, and when coupled with this aircraft, which also has excellent FPS, it is a match made in heaven. And hey, look at that! The US Navy's here! Alright, looks like the Nimitz, and I guess they've got a frigate there as well. Very nice. We're not going to try any carrier traps because this version of the Hawk does not have a tail hook, so we're just going to pass that by and continue on our little tour of Bahrain. As you can see, she handles like a dream. I really cannot find too much wrong with this flight model. Actually, I can't find anything really wrong with this flight model. It flies exactly the way that I would expect a Hawk or Goshawk to fly. But with that having been said, let's face it, this is not Just Flight's first rodeo into X-plane. They have, of course, brought in some general aviation aircraft, but this is their first jet that they're bringing into X-plane, let alone a fighter jet. And let's face it, we really don't have that many fighter jets here in X-plane currently. I mean, we've got the AOA Simulations F-35, we've got the Panavia Tornado, we've got a couple of FREEWARE French jets like the Alpha Jet and so on and so forth, but there's really not a whole heck of a lot. Granted, you never heard this from me, but I do believe we are going to be getting a Tomcat in the near future. Recent leaks from the 11.30 patch notes indicate that they're doing a lot of the background work to make the Tomcat a viable aircraft. So, you know I can't wait for that one. Now in real life, this aircraft is used primarily as a trainer aircraft, but it can also be used as a light attack platform. Now the other versions of Just Flight's Hawk, that being the ones for P3D and FSX, do have the capability to utilize weapons. And even the DCS version, I think, also has that capability. But bear in mind, I don't own the DCS version. Well, Just Flight has gone as far as to give you the capability to utilize weapons in this version as well. So I'm sure you're probably familiar with the little weapons loadout in the customization screen of the aircraft. You can actually select either bombs or missiles or guns as armament on this thing. Just the basic default stuff that X-plane will allow you to use. And you can use it in X-plane. Of course, with that having been said, just remember, X-Plane is no DCS, so you can't expect to have, like, you know, realistic combat situations in X-Plane currently. At least until the devs ever decide to do something with it, which honestly is anyone's guess at this point. Alright, let me get our speed brakes out so that way we're not overspeeding on descent, and I think we're going to go as low as we can get and see if we can find the other airbase that happens to be on this island. Over in that direction, it should be the third airbase, but our scenery designer here, I believe, forgot that airbase, so it does not show up at all, unless, of course, you've got orthophotos. But if you look directly ahead, you see that flashing light? That's where we're going. That's the other airbase. That's the third airbase that's on here. So we're going to go check that out here. And let me just take a look at this terrain here. That actually looks pretty good for default. I'm not going to lie, folks. That looks really good for default. Wow. I might just not turn on the orthophotos at all. I'll just leave it like this. Okay, and this is the airbase that I was telling you about. This is Isa Airbase. So here's the plan, folks. I'm going to circle back around, and I'm thinking we're going to do a touch and go here, and then we'll head back to Bahrain International, since night's going to be falling really soon, and I don't want to be flying too much in the dark here. But there you go, not too shabby. I like the roads that are leading to and from the airport as well. I have to say, this guy did a really good job on the scenery. I'm not going to say too many bad things about it, because he actually did good. I am, however, going to need to slow down. So there's the runway edge there. We've got our speed brakes out. Let's get ourselves below 200. Alright, we're going to go a little bit further out. Let me see what our speed is. Okay, we're looking good enough to drop our gear, so we'll go ahead and get that down now. And I'm going to set the flaps to the takeoff position, so that's the middle position. We'll go ahead and turn to base leg, and then we'll turn to final. You may have noticed that I'm currently using what appears to be a desert livery. The story behind that is actually the Royal Saudi Air Force livery that I'm using, which of course comes with the Hawk. I couldn't find something for Bahrain as of yet, but I figure Bahrain and Saudi Arabia are probably close friends, so I'm pretty sure they wouldn't mind a Saudi aircraft coming in at one of their air bases or something. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But I do say that to also say that Just Flight has an extra package that just contains additional liveries. I want to say it's like 14 or 15 bucks. It's up to you if you want to pick it up, because as soon as there's a paint kit available, which I believe there might be, I'm pretty sure everybody and their brother's going to be making liveries. As a matter of fact, if anyone wants to make me a T-45 Navy livery, I'll gladly accept. Alright, let's touch and go here. I do have to say, the longer I fly this thing, the more I'm starting to take a shine to it. And bear in mind, folks, that my only prior experience with any kind of Hawk type aircraft was Dino Cataneo's T-45 Goshawk, which of course is FSX and P3D. And don't get me wrong, I love the hell out of everything that Dino does. But it's FSX and P3D, so that means the flight model, even though it's really good, it doesn't feel exactly the same as what I'm feeling right now in this Just Flight Hawk. So I do have to give Just Flight props. I'm not quite sure what their secret is on that, but this actually does feel very responsive, very smooth. And I've also got to give them a shout out as far as the sounds of this aircraft, because when I pull up hard on the stick, I can actually hear the buffeting air over the wings. It's awesome. What in the heck is that? Is that what I think that is out there? Oh my god, it is! There's another aircraft carrier out there, folks. Huh. Okay, so I guess the creator of this scenery created a static Nimitz for his little harbor over in that direction somewhere. And then, of course, we've got the regular AI, moving AI that Laminar Research has floating around here. We're just going to pretend that might be another Nimitz-class ship that's coming to relieve the other Nimitz-class ship, because you know this area's got a lot of U.S. aircraft carrier traffic going on at any given point in time. Alright, but I think that we've had a commanding view of this neck of the woods, and I'm thinking we should probably start heading back. Wait, is that... I want to say that's Oman or UAE over there. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with this area of the map, so you'll have to forgive me. Yeah, folks, there really is not much that I can complain about with this aircraft. So far, I'm really having a ball flying it around. And I know I still have yet to go through some of the other portions of the manual just to figure out some of the other stuff that I can do with this thing. But so far, the most important parts of it, for me at least, is how it flies and how well it works in VR. And for that, I've got to give it top points. Now the price is a little bit higher than most of the aircraft of this caliber. I mean, they're asking like 45 bucks for it. Normally, you know, in X-Plane we're used to seeing prices around the 20s or the 30s thereabouts. But is it worth it? I don't know. I have to say I think it is. I don't think that if they would have gone with a higher price point that, you know, they could really justify it necessarily. But for what it is, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's worth it. Anyway, there is our airport. That's Bahrain International, and if you look off in the distance you can see the city of Manama, which is the capital city of Bahrain. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go on a downwind leg, and let me get our flaps down real quick here, now that we're slow enough. Yep, flaps are definitely out. So yeah, we're going to go on a downwind leg. We'll go over the bay there, and then we'll come in on the same runway that we took off. we'll taxi back to our parking spot and see if the one guy managed to get the other guy out of the manhole as of yet. But yeah, pretty good. I have to say, I love this aircraft. It is really freaking good. And this scenery too. I mean, I could have used Saudi Arabia, but honestly, there's not that many really good Saudi Arabian scenery packages out there for X-Plane 11. And I really didn't want to mess with a whole bunch of ortho photos for that. I figured doing ortho for Bahrain and then getting this little scenery package was enough. So what's next on the agenda for Just Flight? Who knows? But if they've got any more aircraft like this, I'm going to highly recommend that they bring them over to X-Plane 11 as well, because this is definitely worth it. Alright, gear is down, flaps are full, and you can already hear the distinct noise that happens whenever you've got your flaps full. This, in my opinion, is what I think makes it worth it. It feels real. That I love. Okay, but with that having been said, let's go ahead and make our base leg turn here. What's our current altitude? 1200. Yeah, we're going to need to drop a good bit to get down to that runway. It is at sea level after all. Alright, well we're at 1100 now, so we should be able to trim her up a little bit for speed. Keep the speed around 120-ish. Yeah, looks like 120 should be good. And we'll just keep dropping here. Now my rate of descent is going to be a little bit sprightly here. We're doing a tactical approach into Bahrain International. But again, I'm sure they won't mind. You know, friendly neighborhood Saudis in the area. Alright, everything else looks good. Let's start our turn to final. You can see on the PAPI lights there, we're a little bit high. That's the other thing that I love about this thing. I can trim her out and fly her all night. I believe it does have autopilot. I don't know. I could be wrong on that. I haven't really found a need to use autopilot since I'm always doing those crazy aerobatics and whatnot. But I will say this. You can trim it out and it'll basically just hold its attitude all night, which is a beautiful thing. Alright, I do believe we've got 2 white, 2 red. Now we're getting a little low here. Just a touch. And it does feel a lot different when you've got this thing on full flaps as opposed to in a clean configuration. So you've got to be careful on the landing. It does have a tendency of floating, and once it's done floating, it kind of likes to come down nose heavy. So let's see if I can nail it like I did back at ESA. Oh, nope, 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 nope. Hold it together. Whew, okay. Alright, so sorry about that one. That was a little bit of a wobbly goblin landing there. But hey, we're down. We're safe. The wheels are still intact. There's probably still air in the tires. Notice I say probably. Okay, so all we need to do now is roll out and find our taxiway back to our parking. As we make our way to our final parking spot, we're going to need to cross this second runway here. Luckily there's no traffic, so we should be okay. But I'm thinking I probably should have stopped short, and then I could have taken the taxiway just before this one, because I'm not too keen on crossing runways, even if I don't have any AI traffic going currently. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt. But it actually brings up something that I do want to touch on really quickly that you will need to know about this Just Flight Hawk. The real Hawk, as well as the modeled Hawks in the flight sims, do not have nose wheel steering. Hang on, let me turn off my strobe light there. Okay, there we go. So yeah, there's no such thing as nose wheel steering in this aircraft. Now what does that mean? That means when you're taxiing, you're gonna have to use what's known as differential braking. That should be familiar to those of you who have flown like the L-39 in DCS and so on and so forth. Basically, you turn your rudder and you press the appropriate toe brake, so the left or the right, in order to get it to do what you want it to do. Now that aspect of this aircraft is modeled pretty well, and I don't have any issues using differential braking because of course I have the experience with the L-39. However, where it becomes a little bit of a problem, as you're going to notice, is when it actually comes time for us to come to a complete stop. I'm not quite sure what's going on here, and hopefully Just Flight will take a look at it. It's probably a little hard to see, but what I was basically showing was the fact that I was pressing the brakes and even turning the rudder, and it was still inching forward after a while. I actually had to turn the throttle up in order for the brakes to take effect. So hopefully, Just Flight, if you can take a look at that and figure out what the issue might be, that would be awesome. But other than that, I gotta say, this is a really great aircraft, and I'm glad that I purchased it. And I would highly recommend you do the same, especially if you're looking for a jet fighter trainer for X-Plane 11, you know, something comparable to DCS. Like I said in the beginning, I do not have the DCS version of this aircraft, but I really don't think I need it after having this one. This is just that good. Alright, but that will do it for me, folks. So, as always, I want to thank you for watching. This has been BelGeode, and I've been flying in X-Plane 11. Tonight we've been showing off the Just Flight Hawk. That's the BAe Hawk T-1/A. And we've been flying around in a freeware scenery called Kingdom of Bahrain. So be sure to pick them up. Okay, folks, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and I will catch you in the very near future with some more X-Plane goodness. That's it for me. BelGeode signing out, and you all have a great evening. Ciao!